Good afternoon. Really excited about getting back into the competitive world this week in Acrisure Stadium versus New Orleans Saints. I'm excited for a lot of reasons. It's a Hall of Honor weekend, get an opportunity to honor some Steeler legends within that group. My man Heath Miller, so excited about that component of it, excited about getting this group back into a stadium. We made really good use of our bye week as we talked about last week. And bye week, there are a lot of things going on bye week usually. From a player perspective, man, we like to give players whatever it is that they need. In some instances, because of health, is resting, recuperation. In some instances, is that because of age, if you will. Sometimes we give guys additional work, developing players. We work on components of our game that we feel like require our attention. Oftentimes, it's situational football, weighty downs, possession down football, 2-minute red zone. We had a good week in terms of some of those things. From a health standpoint, I'll outline some player availability and some things going on with some of those things. Miles Jack got minimized last week with the knee. We'll let his participation be our guide. Kuntz experienced a rib injury. We'll let his participation be our guide. It could limit him at the early portions of the week, but don't have many reservations about his availability. Witherspoon with a hamstring. Will Jackson, who we just acquired with the back, might be limited some at the early portions of the week. Some existing things that we're managing, and we'll let their availability, the amount of availability and the quality of that work be our guide. Levi Wallace as he comes off his shoulder, Ogunjobi as he comes off his knee, and Boswell as he works off of his groin. So some of these guys worked in some capacities yesterday. As we get on the clock Wednesday and get in our normal flow, we'll let their participation be our guide and the quality of that work in terms of us making decisions about whether to utilize them or how often we utilize them. I got a couple of guys working their way back off of IR. TJ and KZ, both guys have been participants, and like the others who are managing some injury circumstances, we'll continue to monitor those guys. We've been optimistic about their inclusion this week. But again, we got some work ahead of us and got some reaction to that work, how they feel coming off of the work, and et cetera. And so we'll just continue to monitor those guys and make appropriate decisions regarding them as we get closer to game time. Specifically about New Orleans, starting first with their defense. I see some evolution in these guys that's dramatically different from the last time we played them. They're still a four-down front. They play a lot of people up front. They do a great job of getting pressure on your quarterback with Cam Jordan and company. But I see some end-of-the-line awareness and some edge play, some evolution, some hybrid things evolving in their defense. Cam Jordan and company are oftentimes playing in a two-point stance, and I think quarterback mobility and some of the jet sweep things that are in vogue in today's game has really probably pushed them toward that. But there's some schematic changes to deal with from that perspective, and they're a much more versatile group maybe than they used to be in terms of the amount of fronts and things that they're willing to throw at you. And I think the utilization of those edge people, particularly as stand-up guys with Davenport and others, is new and different. Can't say enough about their linebacker tandem, their second-level guys. Davis, as a green dot, as an all-situations player, as a sideline-to-sideline tackler, is very good in the blitz game. They make a lot of plays on the second level. The Honey Badger in the secondary has been a significant addition to them. I think he leads them in interceptions. He's got 2. But versatility is and always has been his calling card. He can play in deep defense. He can play down around the line of scrimmage as a down safety. He also plays some nickel. He's really comfortable covering receivers, and he's always been good as a blitzer. Just his location and the myriad of ways that they utilize his talents are something that has our attention and things that we need to get familiar with as we lean in on game time. They've had a variety of people playing at corner due to availability or lack thereof. Obviously, Lattimore is a top-notch guy who's bump capable. All their guys are bump capable. They're good on the line of scrimmage. They get in your face. They work to destroy the normal flow or the rhythm of the offense with those techniques. They get after the quarterback, like I mentioned with Davis. They've been really good in the blitz game, and you saw some of that last night. Oftentimes when you deal with quarterback mobility, it requires that you bring more than 4 people, and they put that on display last night. On the offensive side of the ball, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Hill and the challenges that he brings, his versatility. He plays in the game at a variety of positions, quarterback among them. They got some schematics that are really challenging when he's playing at quarterback. But he's also capable as a tight end or H-back, and they can do some more traditional things, some play-action passing, some misdirection passing, some run game. So we got to put a thoughtful and intentional plan together regarding his usage in an effort to minimize his impact on the game. And then, of course, they got Andy Dalton, and Andy is a veteran guy who's highly familiar with us. We're familiar with him as well, and so there'll be a cat and mouse component of us reacclimating ourselves to that element of the competition. He's always been a good and prudent decision maker. He makes fluid decisions. He gets rid of the ball rather quickly. He utilizes all his eligibles, and they've got a nice group of a collection of eligibles. They've had some attrition throughout the journey, with Mike Thomas being less than available and Jarvis Landry, but they've had some guys really evolve and step up, like the young receiver Olave from Ohio State. Is proven to be mature beyond his years. Not that we're really surprised by it. In studying him in draft prep, man, he was a guy that probably was under consideration to come out a year ago and chose to stay. So it's probably not a surprise that he's showing the maturation of someone who made that decision some 12 months ago. He's making quality plays for him, but they got a collection of guys. They spread the ball around very well, not only to their wide receivers, but they got a nice tight end group as well, and Kamara is a running back, is dangerous in and outside the backfield. They supplement him with Ingram and others. They just do a really good job of personnelling you, moving in and out of personnel groups and spreading the ball around within those personnel groups that it makes it tough to get a beat on them, particularly in certain situations or elements of situational play. But it's been a good week. We got a significant week in front of us, some more work in front of us from a prep standpoint. We're excited about doing it. We'll lean in on it and finish up the next day or so with some schematic preparation, and then get back to the physical work tomorrow with our guys. And I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, if everything goes as planned and both T.J. Watt and Casey are available on Sunday, just how much does that change or elevate the defense as a whole?
I just think that remains to be seen. I think I'll let their contributions speak for themselves, but obviously those are 2 veteran players that are NFL capable and obviously going to be positive contributors to our efforts if available.
Mike, when you use the bye week for self-assessment, where do you see the offense? Where do you feel you need to get better? Where can you get better?
I think we can get better in all areas, and not just offensively, but in all 3 phases. But specifically as it pertains to the offense, we spent a lot of time talking about how we're dividing the labor up and who we're choosing to feature and what component of play and how much we're choosing to feature people. And obviously, when you go to a trade circumstance like we did with Chase, that creates a real avenue to have some of those discussions in terms of the distribution of playmaking opportunities and who works what areas of the field, et cetera. And so feel really good about the work that we were able to get done in that component, or at least in those discussions.
Building off of that, did you use most of the time during the bye week to look at situations like that and figure out ways where you might make changes to try to get better, or did you look at those things and say, we just have to do what we're doing better?
Both. In some instances, what we're doing was above the line, and so you continue to grow and develop it or enhance it. And in some instances, obviously, we're talking about some new and different things.
Go ahead.
What are some things you feel like you could build on that you saw from the offense as you were studying?
I thought our misdirection passing game and our pocket movement stuff was really positive and efficient. And so that's been an asset to us. And I think it helps us from a protection standpoint when we're able to change the launch point and we're not a stationary target from that perspective. I thought that was just one component that I thought was really positive.
Mike, we keep hearing this team is getting closer after being able to analyze some of these things during the bye. How close or how far is this team away from what you want?
We'll see. I tend to let our actions do the talking, and I think that's appropriate. And I think oftentimes when you hear what you reference, it's just us responding to questions about the subject. We understand this is a put up or shut up game, and particularly at this level, and so we tend to talk less and let our play speak for us.
Mike,
Mike,
after
how, if at all, does the passing game change, the focus of the passing game change with Claypool not here?
I don't know that it does. As I mentioned, it's not just the depth at the position that we were comfortable with in terms of making that move, but just the space in the field in which Chase had made a lot of plays for us also is the space of the field where Pat Freiermuth makes a lot of plays for us. And so it's reasonable to expect him to get continually highlighted in that area as well.
Mike, after the Philly game, Kenny said that he needs to see better study habits from his teammates and those things. I mean, how have you seen the guys respond over the bye week, and what would you like to see from them?
I don't know what he was referring to there, so I'm not going to try to add any color to an opinion. I believe our guys study at an appropriate level, and I've seen that continually throughout this process, whether it's bye or a normal game week. I'm not going to add any color to an opinion that I'm not highly familiar with.
In addition to that, as far as accountability goes, we've heard multiple times from people about having accountability. Did you see some of that come out in the bye week?
I don't know what you're referring to. Could you be more specific?
Just having players be more accountable. I think even sometimes here on Tuesdays it's been brought up about how they need to be more accountable for what they're doing.
I think oftentimes when you're not successful, accountability is a component of it, and it is something that gets some attention from a discussion standpoint. But accountability and assessing what it is that we do and what we put on tape is routine procedure for us.
Coach, when you look at Jalen Warren and Najee's performance so far, Warren's been hitting the hole fast, hard, better average on runs. Is Najee still affected by his injury?
To what degree, I don't know. He's playing, and so obviously he's healthy enough to play. I'll let him speak to that, but both guys have been available to us. We've gotten some awesome contributions from Jalen, and it's reasonable to expect that to continue. I know, like I mentioned, when we're talking about a division of labor and who's done what and who's done what well, I know that was a topic of discussion and very evident in our tape review.
Mike, it's not really common to add veterans like Jackson and Casey this time of the year, mid-season. How beneficial could that be for your secondary to have a couple veterans to lean on at this point of the season?
I think anytime you get veteran presence, it's an asset to you. Been there, done that, guys, and both guys are that. I don't necessarily view them as one and the same. Casey's been a part of the program from the outset. We signed him in the offseason. Will's contribution will be determined by his availability and how quickly he's able to learn some of the nuances of what it is that we do and his ability to communicate and function as a collective.
When you were asked that, I'm sorry.
I think you had like 10 defensive backs that played this year. How do you choose, or is it whoever's playing well at the time, that's what you're rolling?
Yeah, we'll let participation be our guide and the quality of that work leading up to performance.
Mike, you were asked after the Eagles game about your record, and you were quick to point out that you've been here before, at 2-6. You talk to the guys, tell them about, hey, this has happened before, and this is how we bounce back?
No, I do not. I do not.
You talked before about otherworldly things that TJ Watt has done. I mean, what does it say about him that he had that injury week 1 and had knee surgery and is still positioning himself to come back and play this season?
TJ is who he is. It's not mystical, the things that he's able to do. And so, I don't know that any of us are surprised with what he's capable of getting done. And, we eagerly await his return.
What was his level of involvement? How much was he able to be involved while he was working his way back as far as, meetings, things like that?
He didn't make any plays, if that's what you're asking.
Was the pass rush starting to come around a little bit 2 of the last 3 games? Like, you affected Brady some. It seemed that the pass rush got a couple sacks, got 3 against the Eagles. Was the rest of the collective pass rush coming around now before it? And Watt adding to that, how much could that help?
I think it remains to be seen. Obviously, we're optimistic, and I think it's beyond wide. I think it's, availability of guys like Larry Ogunjobi, and development of new guys like Malik, who's not new to the game of football at this level, but obviously new to us. And so gaining that understanding of what we're asking them to do and how to work as a collective is a component of it for sure.
During camp, it seemed like KZ, there was a lot of three safety looks in the defense. It was something that maybe in the past you didn't do as much. Is that something we could see going forward? And what is the advantage, disadvantage with a safety rather than an extra cornerback or a linebacker or whatever?
Yeah, I just think in this era of specialization, I just think particularly defensive specialization to match offensive personnel groupings is a big component. And in three safety defense or big nickel, as a lot of people refer to it, is one of the things that's in vogue to combat two tight end personnel groups, and particularly when one of those tight ends is a vertical upfield type and a guy that's wide receiver-like. And so we explored that some, and it was an asset to us, and it's reasonable to expect us to continue in that vein.
Like you mentioned, this being a put-up or shut-up game, how would you describe the mood you see from the guys kind of coming off the bye into this week here?
Appropriate. And not this particular game, but every single game that we play is a put-up or shut-up game. That's just the business that we're in at this level.
Mike, given your current circumstance, might we see more younger players get more reps during games?
If it's conducive to engineering victory, that's our sole agenda. Is putting together a plan and highlighting the skills of players that produce victory. And so if it's a component, if that's an component of the equation, then certainly.
I know this might seem as a little bit of a basic question, but for the rest of the season, what's the goal for this team?
We're singularly focused on this week's opportunity, which is to win this game.
Mike, when you looked at the offense and opportunities that you kind of identified there, how much of that is looking at what Kenny has done well and sort of tailoring what you want to do going forward to what he's shown to be a strength so far?
Obviously, given the position that he plays and the significance of it, that is a component of the equation, certainly.
What have you seen from him that kind of fits in that category?
Again, like I outlined, the pocket movement, the misdirection passing has been a point of really efficient work for us.
My team's had a hard time with man downfield penalties on the RPOs this year. Is your instinct to go away from that and to go to more traditional play action, or do you think you can tell your line?
I think that component of the game is here to stay. I think that we all have to get better in tune with what the officials want and what they're looking at from an officiating standpoint. That's obvious just by the nature of the number of calls that's been made in that area, not only against us but against everyone.
Like you mentioned, defending the two tight end set. Do you like how yours has performed and Connor's role in there? Do you think there's more opportunities for those guys down there?
I think we've gotten some mileage out of multiple tight end personnel groups, and I think there's obviously some more meat on that bone, yes.
Anyone else?
Mike, I'm curious after the Philadelphia game in the bye week. I know Cam, of course, on defense, but who is really leading this team when it comes to the offense in the locker room? Who have you seen kind of stand out in that aspect?
I think we've had a number of guys that have displayed leadership, and I think Kenny has been consistent in that area. I also think Mason Cole, as a hub of communication in the offensive line, has displayed consistent leadership. Pat Fryermuth is an emerging leader. Najee is an elected captain. Deontay is a guy that's taking an active role in the development of some younger people at his position. And so it's coming from a lot of areas, but I think that's a reasonable expectation.
Mike, you mentioned Mason, and the offensive lines, a lot of guys have had the illegal man downfield, false start holding. He's been not penalized this year. What have you seen from him that you?
I think he's been steady Eddie, not only in performance but in presence, in communication. He's a quality veteran football player.
You've had a lot of moving parts in the secondary because of availability. Art Millette's kind of been the one guy that's been there for you all season. Besides being available, what has he shown and how has he grown since he's been here?
Man, he's really good in first and second down football, blitzing, run game stuff. He's a solid tackler. His level of communication and the quality of his communication really is dramatically improved, and I think that's a reasonable expectation from year one to year two, this being year two, being a contributor for us, and I think that's been evident in his play and particularly when he's in there to this point.
Have you been able to tap into his knowledge of the Saints at all after he was there a few years ago?
I'm sorry?
Have you been able to tap into his knowledge with the Saints at all after he was there a few years ago?
He's got a few helmets in his basement.
Example of what you were talking about in training camp, the difference is the evolution of slot play. When you have a really big guy like Chase who's been there, now more of a smaller, shifty guy, potentially might be taking some of the snaps in Sims. How does that change your approach to what you want out of that position?
I think we've been having that discussion continually during this season. The different types of athletes that play inside. There are guys that are vertical slots. There are guys that are non-vertical slots, that are zone winners, that are man winners. I just think that's a component of the specialization of the game, and that's why you see different types of defensive packages. Guys like Arthur Millette playing down against some of that stuff. Guys like Casey playing down against some of that stuff. It just speaks to the specialization that's occurring in today's game.
Maybe yesterday after the bye, at the record you guys have right now, what's kind of been the mindset or the personality of the team? Would you like to see them angry? You want to see them loose, and how do you want them to be, and what are that?
You know, emotions can be good. They can be bad. It's just about whether or not you weaponize them. You know, I'm more concerned about the emotions that we display on Sunday. During the course of preparation, getting to Sunday, I just want the group to be singularly focused, professionally speaking, on preparation, because we believe preparation leads ultimately to quality play.
Do you feel like this is a fresh start of sorts, middle of the season?
You know, I view every week as a fresh start, you know, because your resume means very little. What you've done to this point means very little. The most significant opportunity is the one that awaits us all, whether you're 2-6, 6-2, coming off of a bye week, coming off of a short week. You know, the windshield component is the big picture for us as opposed to the rearview mirror.
Anyone else?
Mike, would you look at Jalen Warren as a feature back at this point when you were talking about changes?
You know, he's a quality back that's made some plays. We'll keep giving him an opportunity to do so, and maybe he'll write that script.
Mike, does the picture change at all? Do you go from a bigger picture, or do you have a bigger picture, or do you go where you're talking about singularly focused game to game?
What do you reference when you say bigger picture?
Well, like if your goal is, you look at, you know, okay, you always talk about Super Bowl, and then that's your goal. But at this point, at 2-6, you minimize it.
I don't know that my mindset regarding any of that has changed as I sit here today. It's a Tuesday. We're putting together a plan to win this week, and we're excited about constructing the day tomorrow that's going to allow the guys to prepare to do so. It's simple for me. It's a singular professional focus. You can't worry about the things that are behind us. We better get focused on the things that are immediately in front of us.
What has Steven Sims done? I mean, from going, coming in training camp and then taking the job as a return specialist, and now he's obviously his play has given you confidence to put him in there to trade a guy like Chase. You know,
he's been a guy that's made some plays when given an opportunity, when available. He's electric with the ball in his hands. He flipped the field on us a few weeks ago in the kick game, and so we're excited about giving him a continued exposure to see if that continues.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.